have been developing our API. Just a bit of technical issues here. Okay, now. Yeah, first, we are not an API platform, at least for now. We are not an API management software. We are an ERP, or kind of. We are an ERP for professional service businesses. So we deal with people and time sort of things, not warehouses and manufacturing. And we have some, or a lot of international customers, also some around here in Denmark and in other Nordic countries. But then we have also a lot of connections, integrations to PlanMill. Things like, you know, SAP and some other bigger companies. We are only 25 people in our company, but our customers are around the world, so in Brazil and Malaysia and all over Europe and Nordic countries. I thought that I would buy some audience love by showing you an invoice in Danish, and please do not tell me that there are some spelling mistakes or other weird things, because people are actually sending this out of our system. Also for our German customers or viewers tomorrow. But hey, ERPs are often seen as grandpa's old sleigh. They are very boring and heavy to maneuver. Hands up, how many of you are dealing with ERPs and integrations? Okay, some people are not so shy. Okay, so you maybe know what I'm talking about. When you mention that you're working with an ERP, everybody's like, okay, wake me up. But then APIs are more like space fighters, or they're young and fast and nimble. Everybody wants one and everybody wants to play with them. And unfortunately, this is from Legoland, Germany. Sorry, guys, but we were there last autumn with the family. So what happens when the boring and the nimble get hitched? So that is what we did. We married them in 2009, when our first API was born. And it was in the beginning of the API world as we know it. After that, everybody started doing their APIs. So we were there when almost nobody else was there. There was like Flickr API and some others. And we had to fight all the children's diseases on it. So I'd like to say that our first API was very accidental. It was like very painful birthing process. Sorry, guys, this is women's talk, but you know it. We had this 12 months API pregnancy, like I called it in Finland in the first Nordic APIs, because this is what it felt like. First of all, your girlfriend or wife or somebody comes to you and says, hey guys, we are going to have a baby. That's like it felt for me when our boys came up to me and said, we are going to have an API, we are just building it. And I was, what the hell is an API? Come on guys, what are you talking about? And I had dealt with a lot of integrations in the past, but APIs were so new then that we just didn't have a clue what we are doing. And there was a lot of things that we did wrong, a lot of things that we did right. We got all of these so-called API usability problems that we had in the past. So like people were complaining when they were using our API, our customers and partners, that, hey, come on guys, why do I have to do this with 5 requests? Can you just give me one that works? And then there were those episodes when the customers were so eagerly using our API that they almost crashed the whole server because we did not have any rate limits or anything else there. Do not do that, just a word of caution. And then we had a lot of backend exposure in the API. We were basically having a very JavaScript-full front end, which was okay when there was just that user interface. But when there was API that was using the same backend, of course there were no on-changes happening in the API, so the IDs were not in the requests and so forth. So yes, we did have to fix that, and we are still fixing some of that. a lot of things like how to expose the error messages and all kinds of weird things, like who would want to have an ID returned when you're creating something, some new resource? Like, really? Okay, so this was what we did decide to do when we decided to renew our API last year. So we thought that, okay, we are not going to be stupid again or not knowing again. There's much more wise information and writings all over the place, so let's do a proper research project. So there was even a thesis made at the beginning of this phase. And we called in our customers and our partners and told them that, hey, this is what we think that we should be doing. Please tell us if we are totally stupid or you need something else, or tell us what you think. And they told us a lot of the experiences that they had with our API. And of course, they had used some other APIs by that time. So they were really eager to share. And there was even a couple of customers who made their theses out of our API. So that was nice to read, you know, publicly what was wrong with our then current API. But that's learning. Then we decided to do a pilot of all the stacks of the technologies and see what we could do if we could start from scratch. Because our API, or like our system in its entirety, was about 10 plus years old at that time when we did the API. So of course we had to go about some problems there, and we had to mask a lot of old things that were not so well designed maybe in the beginning, so that we could offer an interface, a clean interface, like some people here already told you that it's a good thing to have that front hair and to mask the awful hairdo in the back. And then we got to fix all those problems. So then we had internal demos and we did a lot of research. We read a lot of Nordic APIs blogs and we attended, for example, the summit in Stockholm last autumn, and we tried and we failed, but then we got ourselves a strategy and architecture, like what services, what things, what technologies we would use, and we did an internal beta. And then we decided that the best thing to do, like we had learned from the previous phase, like in 2009, was to eat our own dog food. So basically we started simultaneously with the API development, a user interface development with new technologies, React.js and all kinds of cool new things. And we had basically a couple of people doing the API and a couple of people doing the UI. And Toni there and Mihail in the back can vouch for the fact that it's so nice to hear from the UI guys that what the hell are you thinking when you're doing this API like this? We need this and this other stuff. So we have got ourselves a lot of internal feedback, and now we have gone public to our customers with the 1.5 of it. So we are putting out some of the resources, some of the endpoints right now, and then we are building more into it, and eventually next year we intend to publish the full platform as 2.0 API, and then we can start working more roughly in the back end and renew things underneath. Our architecture choices, after the research or in the research phase and in following months, we decided some things. So, sorry, Travis, HMAC and API key. I know you're disappointed, but we promise we will do something about the situation. But the thing was that we had feedback from our customers that, hey, we are so much interested in doing an integration with like system level, like servers talking to each other, For example, a daily payroll transfer or invoices from one system to another and so forth. So we are not so interested in this social media thing where like one user is using or authorizing your LinkedIn account to use your Twitter account or whatever. We don't care. We want one user or one like set of credentials to talk with this other set of credentials in this other system. So, hey, come on, give us something simple. Oh, Auth is stupid, we don't want to use it. And it's annoying. That was the message at the first phase. And anyway, it would have been a little bit more to do for us. So we decided at first to go with the HMAC. And then there was the data format thing. You might want to laugh also, like some of our customers and partners, when we really suggested that yes, our API is going to give you out more than JSON. It's going to give you sometimes even CSV and PDF. And that was really funny from some points of view. But actually what our users do a lot with our API and our current 1.0 API, they are actually exporting a lot of data to business intelligence and data warehouse systems, where it actually does sometimes make more sense to give out a CSV file than the data in the JSON format. But JSON, of course, is the main thing. All other HTTP verbs are properly used except patch. And patch is a bit weird. Well, not maybe for all, but for us, because a proper patch, according to the standard, is something that describes a change. So if you first got user info, like Bianca's user info in the previous example, but then Bianca changes his name because she gets married to that nice guy. And then there's a delta record saying that Bianca used to have this name and now Bianca's name is this. And that's the patch. That should be the patch. But of course, a lot of systems implement it incorrectly by having it pretty much same like post request with all the data in it. Or doing the update request with the post. But we decided that we would leave it out for now because we don't have that kind of persistence layer in our data structure yet, so we're going to that in 2.0 architecture. Then we made some documentation decisions. So we chose RAML over Swagger. There were some options, but we decided to go with RAML because it was a new thing back then, a year ago. It was a new standard. There was no standard really, but that was a standard. And it was quite easy to adopt. And there was a lot of, even then, a lot of tools to generate documentation out of it. And it's easy to even generate SDKs out of it for developers. In various languages. I'm currently experimenting with the folks in Australia, doing a new thing called APImatic, which is launching properly in June. And they even worked a little bit in the night to get me my SDK because I had a little bit of problem with the RAML. But let's see, it looks promising. Then there's the API changelog, for example. By the way, these are picked from the Nordic APIs blog. Thank you, guys. So that seems kind of interesting for automating the API change notifications. I've not yet tried it out with the guys, but let's see how it turns out. Then REST over SOAP. We had an interesting discussion in the lunch in the beginning of this event that is REST really better than SOAP? Is REST too free? Is SOAP like more restricting, for example, if you use it for financial systems or something like really critical business transactions? And yes, of course, there is that nice VSDL document that is so nice, except if you are using it with SAP. I'm not going to say this in Munich, but yeah. So the problem is that it does describe what you can do and what is the data format, but it generally doesn't describe what are the error codes, for example, what really happens, what are the responses, what you're doing. So a good API, a REST API with proper documentation, including JSON schemas, JSON samples, RAML document or some other format, and also the error codes, is much, much better. It's also something that forces people to design it more simpler. Then, because we are a business software, we had all kinds of weird problems, like, for example, currencies. Like, I personally think that the world should get rid of different currencies. On a daily basis, I have to consult a Swedish company, which has trouble understanding sometimes that different Nordic countries have different currencies and they have different exchange rates. Okay, end of that discussion. But we do have to serve the data out of the system in different currencies and different exchange rates and whatever. So we had to, for example, put in some of the requests this currency header to get the proper conversions. And then we decided to be nice to our developer friends and give them a nice list of the API errors and put some user-friendly messages there after our UI guys were fed up by having to always decode the error messages to the users in the user interface. Then we had some other weird things built in. So here we had much more difficult design discussions, even heated design discussions than in normal API resources. So we had a batch done, so multiple API requests as a batch operation. Then we had hooks done according to the REST hooks org, where you can find a nice manifest about stop that polling madness. So hooks are nice when you want a system to just notify you when something happens and you don't want to poll it all the time. So for example, Zapier is very friends with this hooks thing. And then there's the ongoing internal API wars in the company, that should we save or state or not, when we had to do this kind of like integrations or importing API endpoints. And this is how it looks right now. I don't know if that shows up, but there were these different systems providing files and different formats, and we wanted that to go in smoothly to our system using the API internally. So you have a random file, and then you want it to go in as company data or new companies or something like that. And this is something that we really fought with. And then things that we noticed we needed when developing the UI. So there were list values, different captions for things, meta information in general, like for example, what different values are, what columns are called, what filters are available, that we added. And one thing about security, which hasn't really come up, there are different things in a business software, like for example, social security numbers, bank account numbers, sick leaves, invoices, payroll data, for example. And it has to be shared with different systems, but it cannot escape out the limits of the boundaries where you can share it. So just a thing that hasn't really come up and is very difficult usually for developers to comprehend is that you have the Personal Data Act. I don't know what that is called in Denmark, but in Finland we have that. And company policy, for example, controlling what kind of secrets you can put out in different channels. And then you have government and trade treaty control things. And you can't use for all things integration platforms like Zapier or ITFF or something like that, which put the data even through US in worst case scenario. But then you have to do you have to be able to do that for some kinds of data. So for example, simple contact information or something like that, which is not really secure. So I think that in a good situation you have support for both things. You have openness to share things that you can share freely, but then you have these one-to-one routes where you can share through API data with systems that know each other through secure connections. Thank you.